Zuri's back hit the mahogany desk with enough force to scatter papers across its smooth surface. Kang Jae-seong's mouth was on her throat, teeth grazing the sensitive skin below her ear, and she hated that her body arched into him like a traitor. "Stop," she gasped, but her fingers were already tangling in his black hair, pulling him closer instead of pushing away. He pulled back just enough to look her eyes, his own dark with fury and hunger combined together. "You came to my office, and you begged." His hand slid up her thigh, pushing her skirt higher. "So beg properly. I hate you." The words came out broken, desperate. "Liar." His thumb traced her bottom lip, and when she tried to turn her head away, his other hand caught her jaw, holding her still. "Your sister's arraignment is in 48 hours. After that, the charges stick. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and she'll get 10 years minimum." He leaned in until his lips brushed hers. "Unless you give me what I want." Zuri's mind was screaming at her. "This man destroyed your business. He's the enemy. He wants to ruin your entire family." But her body had its own language, one that spoke in racing pulse and shallow breaths. When his hand slipped between her thighs, she bit back a moan. Welcome to Afro-Korean Studios. If this is your first time visiting my channel, please do well to like and subscribe so you can get notified each time I drop an episode of these beautiful stories. I am sure you don't want to miss out. Now let's dive back to the story. "What do you want?" she whispered against his mouth. "Everything." He kissed her then, hard and claiming, swallowing her gasp as his fingers found exactly where she needed them. 6 months. "You belong to me completely," and Iris walks free. She should have said no. Should have pushed him away, slapped him, run from his office, and never looked back. Instead, she pulled him closer, wrapped her legs around his waist, and surrendered to the chemistry that had been building between them since the first moment they met when he walked into her boutique with those cold eyes and told her he was shutting her down. The encounter was furious, desperate, both of them fighting for control even as they gave in. His desk, then against the window overlooking the Seoul skyline, then finally on the leather couch in the corner of his office. Every touch felt like a battle, every kiss like warfare, until finally they collapsed together, breathing hard, the reality of what they'd done settling over them like ash. Zuri pushed away from him, scrambling for her clothes. Her hands shook as she tried to zip her skirt. This was a mistake. Too late. Kang Jae-seong's voice was cold again. The heat from moments before vanished like it had never existed. He was already at his desk, pulling out a manila folder. "My lawyer prepared this yesterday. I knew you'd come eventually. Desperate people always do." The contract was 20 pages long, single-spaced, in both Korean and English. Zuri's hands trembled as she read. Asterisk the party of the first part, Kang Jae-seong, agrees to withdraw all criminal charges against Iris William upon execution of this agreement. The party of the second part, Zuri William, agrees to the following terms for a period of 6 months, asterisk. Attend all family and business functions as his devoted fiancée. Live in his mansion. Share his bed. Obey him in all things. The words blurred together, each one another link in a chain wrapping around her throat. "I can't." "Then your sister goes to prison." He didn't even look up from his phone. "Your choice. But let's go for dinner." Zuri woke disoriented, every muscle aching, in a bed that wasn't hers. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Seoul stretching out below, the Han River glittering in the morning sun. For one blissful moment, she forgot where she was. Then she saw him. Kang Jae-seong stood by the window, already dressed in black pants and a white shirt, his face carved from ice as he stared down at the city. When he heard her stir, he turned, and his expression made her pull the silk sheets higher. "My grandmother drugged my drink at dinner last night." His voice was flat, accusatory. "She's been trying to get me married for years. Clearly, you were in on it." "What?" Zuri sat up, head spinning. "I don't even know your grandmother. Han Myung-ja. She owns 40% of my company, and she's dying." He stalked toward the bed, each step deliberate. "Last night was her doing. She must have hired you, paid you to seduce me. Are you insane?" Fury gave Zuri the strength to stand, wrapping the sheet around herself like armor. "You're the one who blackmailed me. You're the one who—" She quickly stopped, and then the memories of last night flooded back, and heat rose to her cheeks. "I didn't seduce anyone." "Then explain why you're in my bed." He was close now, Too close, and despite everything, her body remembered his touch. Explain why I woke up with you wrapped around me like you belonged there. You brought me here. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. Had she come willingly? Had she wanted this, even through her hatred? Where's the contract? Already signed. My lawyer witnessed it at 6 a.m. He pulled out his phone, showed her a photo of her signature, shaky but legible. You signed it last night. Don't you remember? I hope you are enjoying this episode of Afro-Korean Stories. Please do well to hit the subscribe button, like and comment. Thank you for helping out. Now, let's continue. She didn't. The last clear memory she had was leaving his office, and then fragments. Being in a car. His hands on her. Her own voice saying yes. Iris. The charges will be dropped this afternoon. He stepped back, creating distance. Get dressed. You have an hour before we leave for your apartment to pack your things. From now on, you live here. The pattern established itself within days. Fight, fuck, ignorance. They argued about everything. Where she should sit at dinner, beside him, his hand possessive on her thigh. What she should wear to his business meetings, conservative but beautiful, and he had opinions about her hemlines. How she should address him in public, respectfully, adoringly, like a woman in love. This was the life Zuri had found herself in. Being the contracted fiancée of a ruthless enemy was the worst thing she has ever done, and there was nothing she could do to save herself. They have heated arguments every day, even on his bed before going to sleep. But she still felt attached to him and wants him whenever he asks for her. Kang Jae-seong was possessive and demanding, his touch claiming ownership of every inch of her skin. Zuri was defiant but addicted. She'd bite and scratch and curse him, and he'd respond with punishing intensity that left them both wrecked. During a business dinner with his board of directors, his hand gripped her thigh under the table with bruising force while he discussed their future with cold calculation. My fiancé is very supportive of the merger, he said, squeezing tighter when she tried to pull away. She understands the value of sacrifice. When they got home night, he took her with a fury that felt like revenge, whispering against her skin, "You're mine now. Every inch of you. Say it." "Never," she gasped, even as her body proved her a liar. "Liar," he growled, and made her say it anyway. Han Myung-ja received them in her private residence, a traditional Hanok house tucked away in Bukshin village. Despite supposedly dying of heart disease, she seemed remarkably vibrant, her eyes sharp as she examined Zuri from head to toe. "You're not what I expected," she said in perfect English, waving to them. "No false sweetness. You look at my grandson like you want to kill him." "Grandmother," Kang Jae-seong started, but she cut him off with a gesture. "Good. He needs someone who won't break." She poured tea with steady hands. "Do you know why I stipulated marriage in my will, dear?" Zuri shook her head, conscious of Kang Jae-seong's rigid presence beside her. "Because he's been dead inside since the fire." Han Myung-ja's voice softened. 15 years of revenge and hatred, building an empire on ashes. He thinks I'm trying to control him, but I'm trying to save him. She reached across the table, gripping Zuri's hand with surprising strength. "He must be married for 6 months before his 35th birthday, and that is 3 months from now, or everything goes to charity. Make him human again. You have fire. Use it." The ride back to the mansion was silent. Zuri could feel questions burning in her throat, but Kang Jae-seong's expression warned against speaking. It wasn't until they were inside, the door closed behind them, that he finally moved. "My study is off limits," he said quietly. "Don't go in there." Which meant, of course, that she had to. She waited until he was in a video conference, then slipped inside. The study was obsessively organized, but one wall drew her attention immediately. A massive board covered in photos, documents, newspaper clippings, all connected by red string like something from a crime drama. And in the center, dozens of photos of her father. Construction site photos. Her father shaking hands with men in suits. Her father pointing at blueprints. One photo was burned at the edges, his face circled in violent red ink, the word murderer scrawled across it in harsh strokes. "I told you not to come in here." Zuri spun. Kang Jae-seong stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "What is this?" Her voice shook. "Why do you have pictures of my father?" "Because he killed my parents." Each word was precisely delivered, surgical. 15 years ago, there was a fire at the Siocho Tower construction site. My parents were trapped inside during an inspection. The fire marshal ruled it accidental, but your father was the project manager. He cut corners, used cheap materials, covered it up to save money. That's not true. I have the evidence. Falsified safety reports. Bribed inspectors. He got away with murder, and then he had the audacity to die himself before I could make him pay. Kang Jae-seong moved closer, his face a mask of cold fury. So I waited. Watched. And when I learned he had 2 daughters, he smiled. And it was terrible. Your family destroyed mine. Now I'm destroying yours. Fair is fair. The room spun. Zuri grabbed the edge of his desk for support. This isn't about your grandmother's will. This is revenge. Can it be both? He was behind her now, his hands on her shoulders, voice soft in her ear. 6 months. That's all I need to take everything you love. Your business, already done. Your sister's freedom, mine to give or take. Your body, his lips brushed her neck. Already mine. You're a monster. Yes. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against him. But you knew that already. That night, Zuri lay awake long after Kang Jae-seong had fallen asleep, his arm heavy across her waist. She should have been planning her escape, thinking of ways to break the contract, save her sister, and destroy the man who had destroyed her. Instead, she was remembering the way his voice had cracked, just slightly, when he'd said they were trapped inside. The way his hands had trembled when he'd showed her the photo of his parents, young and smiling, taken days before the fire. When he stirred in his sleep and pulled her closer, whispering her name like a prayer instead of a curse, she didn't push away. And that terrified her more than anything. Weeks later, the Seoul skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Kang Jae-seong's penthouse like a constellation of false promises. Zuri stood before them, her reflection ghostly against the night, wondering when she'd stopped recognizing herself. 3 months since he'd bought her gallery. 3 months of living in this gilded cage, sleeping in his bed, hating him by day and craving him by night. 3 months of forgetting why she'd agreed to this hell in the first place. The elevator chimed that soft, expensive sound that announced arrivals like a butler in a Gothic novel. Zuri turned, expecting Jae-seong's cold return from whatever boardroom he'd been conquering, but instead found herself staring at a ghost. Maya Thornton stood in the doorway, designer luggage at her feet, looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine and into Zuri's unraveling life. Her box braids were new, swept into an elegant updo, and her smile was the same brilliant flash Zuri remembered from their gallery days, before the bankruptcy, before everything fell apart. Surprise. Maya's arms open wide. God, Zuri, I've missed you. The embrace felt real. It felt like oxygen after months underwater. Zuri clutched her best friend, her former business partner, and let herself break just a little. Where have you been? I called, I texted. I know. I'm sorry. Maya pulled back, her dark eyes swimming with what looked like genuine remorse. After the gallery folded, I needed space. But I'm back now, and I heard about your situation. Her gaze swept the mansion with something between pity and calculation. With him? How did you? I have my ways. Maya's smile turned sly. And I'm here to help. We're going to prove your father's innocence, and we are going to do it together. Kang Jae-seong returned an hour later to find 2 women laughing over wine in his living room. His jaw tightened imperceptibly. That tiny muscle tick Zuri had learned meant he was displeased but maintaining control. Mr. Kang. Maya stood, extending a graceful hand. Maya Thornton. I'm Zuri's friend. I hope you don't mind the intrusion. He didn't take her hand immediately. His dark eyes assessed her with the same ruthless precision he applied to hostile takeovers. When he finally shook it, the gesture was perfunctory. Ms. Thornton, Zuri didn't mention you were visiting. I didn't know, Zuri said quickly, standing beside Maya in unconscious solidarity. She surprised me. Something flickered across Jae-seong's face, and it was suspicion, or perhaps something more primal. Territorial. Where are you staying? Actually, Maya said smoothly. I was hoping you might help with that. Hotels in Seoul are outrageously priced, and I'm planning an extended stay. I own a building nearby. Jae-seong interrupted, his voice flat. I'll have my assistant arrange an apartment. You can move in tomorrow. It wasn't an offer. It was a solution to the problem of her presence, a way to keep her close enough to monitor, but far enough not to contaminate his space. Zuri should have been grateful. Instead, she felt a strange chill, like watching a spider wrap silk around a fly. That's generous, Maya said, and Zuri couldn't tell if the warmth in her voice was real or performed. Thank you. Jae-seong's gaze never left Maya's face. Don't thank me yet. I don't do favors without purpose. The apartment Jae-seong provided was on the 15th floor of a glass tower 3 blocks from the penthouse. Modern, expensive, and equipped with security cameras, Zuri noticed, but Maya didn't comment on. They spent their first afternoon there buried in documents, laptops open, coffee going cold as they dug through fire records and insurance claims. Look at this. Maya turned her screen toward Zuri. The official report says the fire started in the West Wing, your father's section. But these witness statements, she tapped the screen. 3 people reported seeing flames on the east side first. Zuri's heart was hammered. That would mean that someone lied about the origin point, which means someone wanted your father to take the fall. It was the first real evidence Zuri had seen that contradicted the official narrative. She wanted to cry with relief, but Maya's next words froze her tears mid-formation. You need to make him fall in love with you. Zuri blinked. What? Kang Jae-seong. Maya leaned back, her expression calculating in a way that reminded Zuri uncomfortably of Jae-seong himself. He's obsessed with you. Anyone can see that. Use it. Make him fall so hard he can't think straight. And then, when we have proof of your father's innocence, destroy him. Take everything. It's poetic justice. The advice felt wrong, like biting into fruit and finding it rotten at the core. Maya, I can't. Can't what? He's already destroying you, Zuri. Every day you're with him, you lose a piece of yourself. I can see it. Maya's hand covered hers, warm and sisterly. Play the long game. Make him vulnerable, then strike. It's the only way you'll ever be free. Zuri pulled her hand away. That's not who I am. Maybe it needs to be. Maya's smile didn't reach her eyes. Maybe that's who you have to become to survive him. CFO Wu Jeene appeared at the penthouse the next evening like a visiting angel. He was 40, silver threading through his dark hair at the temples, and possessed the kind of easy charm that made people trust him instinctively. Even Zuri, who'd learned to trust no one in Jae-seong's orbit, found herself relaxing under his warm attention. You must be the famous Zuri. He shook her hand with both of his eyes crinkling with what seemed like genuine kindness. Jae-seong talks about you constantly. It's Zuri this and Zuri that in every meeting. I doubt that, Zuri said, but something in her chest tightened hopefully. He's terrible at expressing emotion, Wu Jeene continued, settling onto the sofa like he belonged there. As Jae-seong's CFO and oldest friend, he probably did. Always has been, even before the fire. But since you came into his life, he paused meaningfully. I've seen glimpses of the man he used to be. The one who laughed. The one who believed in second chances. Zuri sat across from him, studying his face for deception and finding none. What was he like? Before, Wu Jeene's expression turned wistful. Brilliant, of course. Driven. But there was lightness to him. He'd make jokes during board meetings, take risks for the sheer joy of it. After his parents died, he shook his head slowly. The fire broke something fundamental. Your father took that from him. The guilt was immediate and crushing, even though Zuri knew her father wasn't a murderer. My father tried to save people that night, she said quietly. He wasn't running away. He was running toward the fire. Wu Jeene's eyes softened with what looked like pity. I believe you believe that. And maybe, he leaned forward conspiratorially, maybe there's more to the story than any of us know. If you ever need someone to talk to, someone who isn't Jae-seong, I'm here. You shouldn't have to face this alone. When he left, Zuri felt fractionally less isolated. It was dangerous, she knew, to accept comfort from anyone in Jae-seong's world. But Wu Jeene seemed different. Safer. She wouldn't realize her mistake until it was far too late. Iris arrived for dinner looking like a ghost of herself. Zuri's 24-year-old sister had always been vibrant, almost manic with energy, but tonight she picked at her food and jumped every time Jae-seong spoke. When he excused himself to take a call, Iris grabbed Zuri's wrist with desperate strength. I need to use your bathroom. Now. Zuri followed her sister down the hall, alarm bells ringing. She found Iris on her knees before the toilet, retching miserably. When the spasms passed, Iris looked up with tears streaming down her face. I'm pregnant. The world tilted. Zuri knelt beside her sister, pulling her close. Oh, Iris. Does the father know? He knows. Iris's voice was bitter. He wants me to get rid of it. Who is he? I'll kill him. No, Iris gripped Zuri's arms. You can't tell anyone. Especially not Kang Jae-seong. Promise me. Iris, if someone's hurting you. Promise me. Zuri promised, though the words tasted like ash. Another secret to carry. Another weight pressing down on her chest, until breathing became a conscious act of will. The corporate retreat came like a reprieve from prison. 3 days in the mountains outside Seoul, ostensibly for team building among Jae-seong's executive staff, but really just an excuse for the wealthy to pretend they were normal people who enjoyed nature. Zuri and Jae-seong were assigned a private cabin. Is doing, obviously. She should have protested, demanded separate rooms, but exhaustion had worn away her resistance. Let him have this. Let them both have this brief escape from the war they were fighting. The first night, they didn't touch. They sat on opposite sides of the room, him with his whiskey, her with her book, existing in parallel solitudes. But the second night, something shifted. I was 20 when they died, Jae-seong said suddenly, staring into the fireplace. My parents. I was in Tokyo for a conference. The first call came at 3 in the morning. The building's on fire. Come home. The second call came at 7. They're gone. Zuri set down her book. She'd never heard him talk about that night. Not really. I'm sorry. I identified their bodies. His voice was hollow, scraped clean of emotion. My father's face was, they told me it was quick, that the smoke got them before the flames. They lied. They always lie to make it easier. He took a long drink. He left me a voicemail that night. Before everything. Said he loved me, that he was proud of who I was becoming. I haven't been able to listen to it since. The confession hung between them like something sacred and terrible. Zuri crossed the room and knelt before him, placing her hands on his knees. He would still be proud. You built an empire from ash. Did I? His eyes met hers, and she saw the boy beneath the monster. Or did I just become the fire? She kissed him then, soft and slow, and he kissed her back like she was oxygen. His hands found the curve of her waist, fingers trembling slightly as they slipped beneath the hem of her shirt. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes, a question and an answer passing between them wordlessly. They undressed each other with uncharacteristic gentleness, no rush, no urgency. When her fingers traced the scar on his shoulder, he didn't flinch away. When his thumb brushed across her collarbone, she didn't armor herself with a clever remark. He laid her down on the bed, his body covering hers with a reverence that made her throat tighten. This wasn't like before, the frantic collisions, the way they'd used pleasure like a weapon. This was something neither of them knew how to name. Look at me, he whispered when she closed her eyes, and when she did, the vulnerability there nearly undid him. They moved together slowly, finding a rhythm that felt less like conquest and more like conversation. His forehead pressed against hers, their breathing synchronized. She wrapped her legs around him, pulling him deeper, and felt him shudder against her. Every touch was a confession. Every sigh, a truth they'd been too afraid to speak. When she arched beneath him, fingers digging into his shoulders, he caught her mouth in a kiss that tasted like surrender. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his heartbeat loud against her ear. He held her face in his hands and whispered, I want this to be real. God help me. I want you to be real. She turned her face to kiss his palm, terrified of the answer but asking anyway. What if I am? Are you? He asked, staring at her. I am, Zuri said, and meant it, and hated herself for meaning it. In the morning, Seoul's skyline rose to greet them like a threat, and the walls went back up. Maya was waiting at the apartment with news. You need to see this. The document was a bank record, a $50,000 deposit into her father's account 1 week before the fire. From an offshore account. Untraceable. No, Zuri whispered. No, that's impossible. I'm sorry, Zu. Maya's sympathy felt rehearsed now. Maybe we need to accept the truth. Maybe Kang Jae-seong was right all along. But Zuri was already seeing the cracks. The document was too clean, too convenient, too perfectly damning. Where did you find this? Old insurance files. I've been carrying out my own investigation. Show me the original. Maya hesitated. Just a heartbeat, but enough. I can't. It was a digital copy. Zuri grabbed her laptop and started searching. The same document appeared in her search results, posted to an obscure forum 3 months ago. Then in another location. Then another. Someone was seeding it everywhere, making sure it would be found. making sure Jae-seong would find it. She returned to the mansion and went straight to his office, the forbidden territory, but she was past caring about boundaries. The document was there on his desk, highlighted in yellow. Someone had been feeding him evidence against her father. But who? And why? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Look outside Wu Jeene's building. 2 a.m. tonight. She was surprised about the text message, but didn't complain about anything. She wanted to talk to Maya about it, but she immediately swallowed it when she knew she had to keep everything to herself. At that point, everybody was a threat to her, and she didn't even know what to call her friends anymore. Zuri stood in the shadows across from Jang Wu Jeene's apartment building at 2 in the morning, watching the entrance like a detective in a noir film. When the door opened, she expected Maya, expecting someone connected to the forged documents. She did not expect her baby sister. Iris emerged crying, mascara running, one hand pressed to her stomach. The protective, pregnant gesture. The other hand wiped at her eyes as she stumbled toward the street. And suddenly, horribly, Zuri understood. Jang Wu Jeene was the father. Jang Wu Jeene, with his kind eyes and gentle words, was the powerful man who wanted Iris to get rid of the baby. Jang Wu Jeene, who had access to every file, every account, every secret in Jae-seong's empire. Jang Wu Jeene, who might be manipulating everything. Zuri pulled out her phone with shaking hands and texted the only person she could trust, despite everything. We need to talk. Now. It's about Wu Jeene. The response came immediately. My office. I'm already there. She wasn't really surprised with the response he gave, and that was because he was Kang Jae-seong, and he never slept. Monsters rarely did. He was always busy in the night, trying to look for what to consume. Probably look for the next set of people who will get into his trap. I hope you are enjoying this episode of Afro-Korean Stories. Please do well to hit the subscribe button, like and comment. Thank you for helping out. Now, let's continue. The phone felt like lead in Zuri's hand as she dialed Kang Jae-seong's number for the second time that evening. Her heart hammered against her ribs, each ring a countdown to another lie she'd have to tell. Zuri. His voice came through, sharp with concern. What's wrong? Are you safe? She closed her eyes, forcing steadiness into her voice. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I overreacted earlier. The issue with Iris, it's settled now. You don't need to come. Silence stretched between them, heavy with suspicion. You called me 40 minutes ago saying your sister was in trouble. Now it's suddenly resolved. The edge in his tone cut through the pretense. What happened? It was just a misunderstanding. Sister drama, you know how it is. The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. I shouldn't have bothered you. I know you're busy with the merger preparations. Zuri. Please, Jae-seong. I'm asking you to trust me. Stay at the office. We'll talk tomorrow, I promise. Before he could argue, before her resolve could crumble, she ended the call. The phone slipped from her fingers onto the couch. Zuri stood in the center of the study, her study now, though she still couldn't bring herself to change anything, and felt the weight of every secret in this house pressing down on her shoulders. Through the window, she could see the guest house where Iris had locked herself away 2 hours ago. No more running. Zuri crossed the manicured lawn with purposeful strides, her heels sinking slightly into the soft grass. The guest house lights were on, casting warm rectangles across the darkened yard. She didn't bother knocking, just used her key and pushed through the door. Iris sat on the floor, back against the bed, mascara-stained tears tracking down her face. She looked up when Zuri entered, and something in her younger sister's expression, that mixture of fear and relief, made Zuri's chest constrict. No more lies, Iris. Zuri's voice was quieter than she'd intended, but no less firm. She locked the door behind her and moved to sit beside her sister on the plush carpet. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Iris's breath hitched. Zuri, I can't. You can, and you will. Zuri took her sister's cold hand in hers. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. But I need the truth. All of it. For a long moment, Iris just stared at their intertwined fingers. When she finally spoke, her voice was so small Zuri had to lean closer to hear. His name is Jang Wu Jeene. The world tilted. Zuri felt the blood drain from her face, but she forced herself to remain still, to keep holding Iris's hand even as ice flooded her veins. He approached me 6 months ago, Iris continued, words tumbling out in a rush now that the dam had broken. At that gallery opening you couldn't attend. He was so charming, Zuri. So attentive. He said he'd heard about you, about your engagement to Kang Jae-seong, and wanted to get to know your family. He made it seem so innocent, so natural. 6 months ago, right when Kang Jae-seong had intensified his investigation into their father's role in the fire. Right when the stakes had become personal. He didn't tell me he was married at first, Iris said, her voice cracking. By the time I found out, I was all ready. She pressed a hand to her stomach, the gesture both protective and helpless. I'm pregnant, Zuri. 1 month along. Zuri's breath caught. A baby. CFO Wu Jeene's baby. The man who'd orchestrated the destruction of both their families, who'd manipulated events from the shadows while wearing a mask of friendship. He'd seduced her 24-year-old sister and gotten her pregnant. He promised to leave his wife, Iris whispered. He said he loved me, that I was different. I believed him. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. God, I was so stupid. You're not stupid. You're 24, and he's a predator. Zuri pulled Iris into her arms, feeling her sister's body shake with sobs. This isn't your fault. Do you hear me? None of this is your fault. But even as she offered comfort, Zuri's mind raced. This was calculated, deliberate. CFO Wu Jeene had targeted Iris specifically to gain access to their family's secrets, to create another point of leverage against Kang Jae-seong. The pregnancy was probably an accident. He would have preferred to keep Iris vulnerable without the complication of a child, but he'd use it anyway. He'd use anything. There's more, Iris said against Zuri's shoulder. Recently, he's been asking questions. Strange ones. About Dad's business records, about your relationship with Kang Jae-seong, about conversations you've had privately. He makes it sound casual, like he's just interested, but she pulled back, her eyes desperate and frightened. I think he's using me. I think this was all planned. But I still love him, Zuri. I hate myself for it, but I love him. And I'm carrying his baby. The confession hung between them, toxic and undeniable. Zuri's mind spun through possibilities, each one darker than the last. If she told Kang Jae-seong about this, about Iris and the baby, what would he do? His hatred for CFO Wu Jeene ran deep, personal. He might see Iris as collateral damage, or worse, as a willing conspirator. And Iris was pregnant. Vulnerable. If CFO Wu Jeene suspected they were onto him, what lengths would he go to protect his scheme? Listen to me very carefully. Zuri gripped Iris's shoulders, forcing her sister to meet her eyes. You're not going to see him again. You're not going to answer his calls, his texts, nothing. As far as he knows, you're sick. The flu. Something contagious that will keep him away for a while. But he'll get suspicious. Let him. We need time. Zuri stood, pacing the small space. I can't tell Jae-seong. Not yet. Not until I know more about what we're really dealing with. What are you going to do? Zuri looked at her sister. So young, so scared, carrying a monster's child, and felt something harden in her chest. Something that had been soft with grief for their father, that had tried to be gentle with Kang Jae-seong despite the revenge that had brought them together. I'm going to find out the truth, Zuri said. All of it. Maya arrived at the villa within an hour of Zuri's call, her expression grim as Zuri filled her in. They sat in the study, door locked, voices low. This is insane, Maya breathed. Even for CFO Wu Jeene, this is calculated, ruthless, exactly what we should have expected. Zuri pulled up files on her laptop. Everything she'd managed to gather about CFO Wu Jeene over the past months. He's been playing this game longer than any of us realized. We need to get inside his office. Tonight. Tonight. Maya's eyes widened. Zuri, that's the only option. Iris can't hold him off forever, and I need to know what he's really after before this whole situation explodes. Zuri stood, already moving toward her closet. As Jae-seong's fiancée, I have access to the executive floors. The security guards know me. If we go late enough, after the cleaning crew leaves, we can get in and out without raising alarms. Maya was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but if we get caught, we won't. They left just after midnight, Maya driving while Zuri changed into dark, nondescript clothing in the back seat. The city lights blurred past, each one a reminder of how high the stakes had climbed. If Kang Jae-seong found out what she was doing, if he discovered she was investigating his business partner without telling him about Iris. One problem at a time. Zuri snapped. The building's night security recognized Zuri immediately. She offered a sheepish smile, playing the part of the dutiful fiancé who'd left important documents in Kang Jae-seong's office. Working late, the guard asked with a knowing grin. You know how it is. The merger prep never ends. Zuri signed them in, keeping her movements casual. My friend Maya is helping me organize some files. We'll be quick. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt interminable. Maya's hand found Zuri's, squeezing once, solidarity and fear in equal measure. Jang Woo-jeen's office was 3 doors down from Kang Jae-seong's. The lock yielded to the executive override code Zuri had memorized from watching Kang Jae-seong unlock various doors throughout the building. She held her breath as the mechanism clicked, then they were inside. 15 minutes, Maya whispered, already moving to the filing cabinets. In and out. Zuri headed for the desk, pulling on latex gloves before touching anything. Jang Woo-jeene kept his workspace meticulously organized, expensive pens in a crystal holder, leather portfolios stacked just so. But the computer was password protected, and they didn't have time to crack it. The filing cabinets proved more promising. Maya found encrypted financial records, transactions routed through shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, Panama, Switzerland. Nothing immediately incriminating, but the pattern was clear, money being moved, hidden, laundered. Zuri. Maya's voice was urgent. Look at this. She held up a folder labeled Project Phoenix in embossed gold lettering. Inside were architectural plans, detailed schematics for a building. Zuri's blood ran cold as she recognized it. The building that had burned. The fire that killed 37 people. Her father's supposed crime. But these weren't the plans that had been submitted as evidence during the investigation. These were different, older, perhaps, or altered. And in the margins, someone had made handwritten notes about structural weaknesses, about how load-bearing supports could be compromised without immediate detection. The handwriting was elegant, precise, completely unfamiliar. Not her father's blocky print. Not even close. Whoever wrote this knew exactly how to make that building collapse, Maya breathed. This was planned. Engineered. Zuri photographed every page, her hands shaking with adrenaline and rage. Her father had been accused of cutting corners, of prioritizing profit over safety. But what if he'd discovered this? Discovered that someone had sabotaged the plans, had intended the fire from the beginning? What if he'd tried to stop it and died for his efforts? They were replacing the folder when Maya froze. Someone's coming. The elevator. They moved fast, returning everything to its exact position, checking for any sign of their presence. The office door closed with a soft click just as voices echoed in the hallway. The late-night cleaning crew. Thankfully, not Jang Woo-jeene himself. They made it back to Kang Jae-seong's office, where they could legitimately be, just as the crew reached their floor. Zuri forced herself to breathe normally, to gather random papers as if she'd actually been working. The guard barely glanced at them on the way out. Find what you needed? Yes, thank you. Zuri's smile felt like broken glass. Have a good night. They didn't speak until they were back in Maya's car, blocks away from the building. Then Maya pulled over and turned to Zuri with wild eyes. What the hell have we stumbled into? I don't know. Zuri clutched her phone, the photographs saved there like evidence of a conspiracy she couldn't fully comprehend yet. But my father didn't cause that fire. Someone set him up. Someone wanted those people dead and made sure he'd take the fall. Jang Woo-jeene. Maybe. Or someone he's working with. Zuri's mind raced back to those offshore accounts, to the careful paper trail of money and lies. We need. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Zuri stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hello. Check your mailbox at the villa. A woman's voice, digitally distorted. Tonight. Don't tell anyone. The line went dead. The unmarked envelope was exactly where the caller had said, tucked into Zuri's mailbox, pristine white against the metal. No return address. No markings. Just her name in printed letters. Maya stayed by the car, watching the dark street, while Zuri opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a single photograph. 2 men shaking hands outside a bank, palm trees in the background suggesting a tropical location. The image quality was good enough to identify both faces clearly. Jang Woo-jeene, smiling that charming smile he'd probably used on Iris. And Kang Jae-seong's uncle, Julian Kang, the man who'd raised Jae-seong after his parents died. Zuri flipped the photograph over. 1 line, handwritten in that same elegant script from the architectural plans. Asterisk, your father tried to stop them. He paid with his life. Asterisk. The date stamp on the photo, 1 month before the fire. Zuri's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the front steps, the photograph shaking in her hands. Maya rushed over, reading the message over her shoulder. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. "Zuri, this means Kang Jae-seong's uncle was involved. He and CFO Wu Jeene planned the fire together." Zuri's voice sounded hollow, distant. "My father discovered it somehow. He tried to stop them, and they killed him. Then they framed him for their crime." Everything clicked into horrible focus. Kang Jae-seong's obsession with revenge against her father, and it had been orchestrated from the beginning. His uncle Julian had fed him lies, pointed him at the wrong target, and used his nephew's grief as a weapon. And CFO Wu Jeene had played his own game, seducing Iris to gain leverage, to keep tabs on what Zuri knew, to ensure he could manipulate events if the truth started to surface. "Who sent this?" Maya asked. "Who knows? I don't know." Zuri stood on unsteady legs, looking at the photograph again. The bank in the background. She could make out part of the name. First Caribbean something. But someone out there knows the truth. Someone's trying to help us. Or trying to use them for their own purposes. In this web of lies and revenge, it was impossible to know who to trust. Zuri thought of Kang Jae-seong, probably still at his office, working late on the merger that would cement his victory over her family's company. The merger built on a foundation of lies his uncle had constructed. She thought of Iris, pregnant and alone, in love with a monster who'd used her body and her trust as weapons against her own family. She thought of her father, who died trying to save lives, only to have his memory destroyed by the men who'd murdered him. What are we going to do? Maya's question was barely audible. Zuri slipped the photograph back into the envelope, her decision crystallizing. We're going to find whoever sent this. We're going to gather every piece of evidence we can. And then, she met Maya's eyes, and something cold and determined had settled into her chest where her heart used to be. Then we're going to burn their entire operation to the ground. Even if it destroys Kang Jae-seong. Zuri thought of his hands on her face just yesterday, whispering, "I want this to be real." Thought of the way he'd held her after making love, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen him before. She thought of 37 people who'd burned to death because of greed and conspiracy. Of her father, vilified and murdered. Of Iris, pregnant and terrified. Even then, Zuri said, the truth matters more than any of us. In the distance, a car engine started. Zuri and Maya turned to look, but the vehicle was already disappearing around the corner, just a flash of dark paint and tinted windows. Someone had been watching, waiting to make sure she received the envelope. The game had just changed, and Zuri had no idea who all the players were. But she was done being a pawn. It was time to play chess. Thank you for watching this episode, my besties. But don't miss part 2. That's where the real enemy is finally revealed. Subscribe so you don't get left behind, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think the real villain is?